Welcome to Kauffman Writes, the #1 creative writing show on the internet for inspiration, motivation, strategy, discussion, advice, and maybe a little bit of procrastination. But don't worry, I won't tell anybody. Welcome to Story Structure Tuesdays. Thank you for dropping by the stream. If you haven't already checked out, last Tuesday we did a deep dive into story structure, and I already got my story notes all set up. But by the way, if you are watching this on the replay, don't worry. You can actually hop ahead to the time codes, which will be coded at the end of the stream. All right. Thank you all for joining me today. Hey, welcome to the stream, John. Welcome, my man. All right, so let's see. So I'm going to be going straight into story structure. How do we structure our stories? So last week, I really wanted to ask myself, what was the thing that writers struggle with when they're putting their stories together? And based on your feedback and your response, clearly you really need help with structuring your stories, as this story structure Tuesday from last week turned out to be one of the popular streams. So let's pull back up what we had previously. So I'll blow this up so you can see it. So last week, what we did was we jumped into designating what constitutes a story structure. So I pulled up, I really think of it as plot, character journey, and the technical side of it, in terms of, do your paragraphs make sense? Does the grammar, is it punctuated correctly? Does your dialogue have the correct dialogue tags? A lot of these different things that go into the technical side of structuring your story. So, of course, each of these elements we can dig into more thoroughly. Like, plot is its own segment of writing, and you can really dig into understanding how to develop your plot, how to structure your narrative for your entire story. Same with character development. Character development is its own entire journey of developing a character and really understanding what makes a character really resonate with your readers. So if you're interested in doing more of a deep dive and learning more about character development, I'll actually be doing that on Friday. But story structure is the combination of all three of these elements. So what can you do? We're going to open up a new page here. Story structure techniques. All right, I want to make sure that y'all can see it. So when structuring my story, and I'm thinking about the overall layout, the guidance, the plot, the whole shebang, how am I going to format it correctly so that way it's interesting and it's engaging? So these are a method that works for me. So once I'll come up with the idea for a story. Actually, let me do this as a bullet point or as a number list. Perfect. So I like to come up with the idea for a story. Now, once again, there's no right or wrong way when it comes to structuring your stories. There's no right or wrong method, but there are a lot of best practices and recommendations to make the process much, much easier for you. And John, you have a funny comment, but if you are a pantser, you don't have to worry about it until you edit, that is. And if you're unfamiliar, we're chatting about that's a difference between a plotter and a pantser, right? So a pantser is somebody who will jump straight into a story and write off the seat of their pants and just see what comes. And well, a plotter has to structure out, plan everything ahead of time. Now, the great thing is structuring your story can actually be applied regardless of what style of writer you are. If you're a plotter, obviously you get to do this beforehand before you even dig into the story itself. But let's say you're a pantser and you just want to hop in, you're just like, I'm going to just trust my creative energy and just see what comes. And that's perfectly all right. The difference is when you get partway into your story or when you get into the edit, you're going to have to look at the structure of it eventually and make sure that it's structured in a way that's engaging, right? So the difference between between when a plotter and a pantser does it, it changes from where they focus on it at the different part of the storytelling process, right? No right or wrong way. I've absolutely tried both ways. For myself, with Last Scarecrow, I actually started off with as a plotter. Or not as a plotter. I started off as a pantser. I hopped into it as a free write, and then about, I want to say about 10 to 20,000 words into the novel, that's when I switched gears. And then I was like, I pulled back. I was like, okay, I kind of need to lay out the structure of it, the format. So so for me, I like to come up with the idea for it. I also like to come up with not only the idea, which is like the core message, theme, or concept. I also like to come up with my protagonist, my main character. My main character, the one that we are going to care about, the character whose journey we want to follow. The journey we have to follow, because this is the craziest moment in their entire life. Okay, so after I have my idea and my protagonist, then I'm going to now start working on an outline. Let's see, I'll move this down. Perfect. So then I'm going to start coming up with an outline. I have my idea, my protagonist, and the core outline for the story. Let's see, John. I am sort of a pantser, and I was annoyed at myself at how many times I repeated stuff. Yeah, that absolutely happens, my friend. That absolutely happens. I was annoyed at how many times I repeated stuff. Yeah, and I mean, like, once again, like, sometimes it comes down to the story that you're working on, and sometimes it comes down to skill level. I think that benefits of plotting something out helps you to minimize the chance of making mistakes throughout the process. But then also some writers, like, they get their best energy when they're hopping into it freestyle. So I think a good combination is diving into something. If you consider yourself a pantser, you just like writing off the cuff of your pants, then a good strategy is hop into a section, free write it, write what comes naturally. And then once the section is done, go back and ask yourself, how's this going to fit into my overall story structure? Right? You don't have to send it through a full edit. That's not what it's about. It's more just being aware of like, okay, what could the roadmap be? And if this is like the first story or you're not that far into it, that's all right. Make some educated guesses, right? Take a chance. Like, hey, if this story is about this character who is a robber who's broken into all these apartments and because he's looking for a gem to save his family. So if I was writing, I was like, clearly I'm doing a thriller this time. So if I had a character like that and I just wrote the scene about him breaking an apartment and he gets nearly caught by this really smart, intelligent techie guy. If I was writing a story like that and that was just the one scene that I came up with, then I'd be like, okay, so for this thief, what would be the most extreme thing that could happen in his entire life? Of course, short of death. He could be found out by the most evil corporation, evil entity ever. His journey would be this individual having to overcome his battle with this organization or has to steal a certain object. Could become a heist thing. It could be a solo hero's journey. Then the very end of it, I'd be like, what could be the ending of it? He's going to have to steal the most difficult thing in the world. Or he's going to have to go up against an organization who's the most evil organization in the world. Maybe their family. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're an evil magic society of doom and destruction, right? So you just ask them. Here's the thing. You can play around with different ideas. And that's what I love doing with the outline. I love coming up with just brainstorm different ideas and have fun with it. I promise you, you will make the process just a little bit easier, even if it's just a matter of like your outline is just like, all right, I'm just going to come up with a bullet point list of random ideas that could happen in the story. That can actually be really fun. Hey, what's up, Buyer Dave? Thanks for joining the stream, by the way, my man. Welcome, welcome. Let's see. What's up, Atomic in the house? Welcome, Atomic. Let's see, my camera's rocking a bit. Thanks for the heads up, Dave. I'm not in my studio this today and the past couple of days since I've been traveling. So the table I'm on is definitely much shakier. So thanks for the heads up. I can be aware of the table. Thank you, thank you. Let's see, John. I plan in my head, but pants are on typewriter. By the way, John, the fact that you're writing on a typewriter is so cool. I have to commend you. I'm curious. Do any other writers? Do any of y'all have typewriters out there? Like, drop it in the comments. I'm just really curious. Working on a typewriter is really cool, and it also makes you feel like a real writer if you haven't been writing in a while. Let's see. I used to pantser on paper, but then I realized it was more of an outline, and I prefer to have it in my head. Yeah, that happens. That definitely happens because we're going about life, and then all these ideas come to us, and we're like, we get inspired by the story. Hey, what's up, Vaughn? Welcome to the stream. Vaughn in the house. Talk to Jan and new ideas. That's awesome, man. I hope you're able to get some really great ideas. Let's see. ChatGPT can create great outlines. Yeah, so I think we actually had a live stream about AI on Sunday, and we talked about AI, and we actually did a fun little competition. My battle against the AI, and we kind of talked about that. Things like ChatGPT work out as a great resource and a great tool when you're trying to develop your stuff, or if you're trying to like using it as a brain partner. Absolutely. If you're like, hey, this is my story, I want to use this, this, and this, like, how would you structure it? Absolutely a great strategy leveraging AI. Excellent. Vaughn's another fellow typewriter over here. High five, Vaughn, typewriter. Let's see, chat. Dave, you're saying ChatGPT doesn't work on your typewriter. Where's the ChatGPT button? I'm like, there's gonna be an AI typewriter coming out at one point. I'm telling you. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll just create like the first product I'll ever sell will be a typewriter that somehow uses AI. I'm sure every writer would be dying to buy that. Let's see. What does destroy my work mean? What does destroy my work mean? Not quite sure what you're saying. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, but don't destroy your work. Definitely do not. Let's see. So one of the fun things with the outline is my strategy with outline is actually super easy. And I've gone into outlining before, and you probably have your own strategy, but I always like to have come up with 3 beats, beginning beat, middle, and an end. It's always just the easiest thing. And then you can brainstorm different ideas. Maybe they fall into one of these beats, or maybe there's just a series of ideas. You're like thinking about this cool story about this thief that I was talking about before. I'm like, what would be like the coolest things like that I could think that could happen to this thief? All right, this thief tries to steal from an evil wizard, but the wizard controls an alternate reality, and we're going to do some type of alternate reality, but the thing that he's controlling is some like magical object that keeps him centered in this reality. That'd be fun. If I want to go more realistic, I could be like, okay, this thief is going to actually be stolen from by an even more master thief who is going to try to track down to become his mentor because he needs to be the best thief in the world, right? So even if you're just brainstorming things off the top of your head, it's actually still an absolutely great strategy to even just come up with these ideas, right? Even regardless of what style you are, now you have an idea and you have a general outline, right? So once you have the outline, we've started with the core idea, we have the protagonist, and then we've developed an outline. Then the next thing we're going to focus on is just putting the story together, right? You're going to be writing writing the sections, writing each piece of a story or of the story. And really good things to keep in mind is you can go as long or as little as you want, right? Focus on making it a short story first. So that way you can improve your odds of creating a fully realized story, and then you can expand upon it, right? Start off with like a short story or even write a scene. Sometimes free writes are always great ways to practice this. But if you're writing a story about a master thief, for me, if I was like just conceptualizing it, I'd write like the coolest scene, then maybe I'd write the ending, and that would just give me two ideas. Or maybe you're like me, and I have to write things in chronological order. But I know for myself, if I get stuck somewhere, I have strategies in place so that way I don't stop writing, and that way it doesn't become an obstacle to my success. So if chronologically working on stuff is a good strategy for you, absolutely do it. The goal is make it easy, make it fun. And that way, when the struggle is real with life is crazy, you can always come back to your writing because it's an easy process. Let's see. What do we got? Let's see. John, I get to write these random fables. Ira Dave, I will say, write me a fable, the diaper, the spice truck, and the biscuit. And surprisingly, it does a good job. It's interesting, right? I think it gives us I think AI gives us another option for other ideas when it comes to story ideation. Ira Dave, an AI pen. Yeah, I think that would actually be helpful, especially with our AI typewriter. I'm trying to figure out like how I would use these. Like the AI pen, okay, write for me this section about the most amazing character, and it just writes it for you. This sounds like either some good product line, or maybe we have a great story in the making, Dave. Maybe you got like a best-selling idea on your hands here. Thanks for sharing, my man. Appreciate ya. Appreciate it. My goal is to help as many writers out there. By the way, if you're new to the stream, I'm Kauffman, and I'm on a mission to help change your world, help show everyone that the entire writing process can be fun. Whether it's brainstorming, writing, editing, the whole shebang. I believe in the entire process. Writing can be a difficult process at times, and the goal is when it gets tough, you find ways to make it easy. And when I say easy, easy ways that work with your lifestyle, especially if you got a 40-hour week job, if you're a student, if you got family responsibilities, make it easy, make it fun. And that way you'll have your first published novel, or maybe you're on a couple published novels before you know it. Awesome. Let's see. And then John, you got some great advice. Do not listen to the voice in your head that says destroy your work, unless you're writing a manifesto for police. There's some absolutely great strategy over there, John. Never destroy your work unless it's a manifesto that would potentially hurt people. Absolutely great advice. I feel like that's like a story in the making right there. Let's we got ChatGPT 4 mentoring ChatGPT 3.5. And then what? We're going to have like the other like AI models, like Claude and some of these other ones who are just going to be like super jealous. Maybe they'll have their own mentors. And then you just have like the children, like the novice AIs that have been around forever, which suck, like Siri and Alexa. I think we got a whole story in the making here, Dave. I absolutely believe in it. Let's see. Teletype was a computer-connected typewriter. Interesting. I'm actually not surprised that something like that exists. It's what was originally used to code the Oregon Trail game. That is crazy. And talk about an OG game, right? Oregon Trail. I remember playing that when I was in elementary school. Talk about a classic right there. I just always remember that if you died of dysentery and vomiting. Oh man. So this is my basis for story structure. Now, the other thing that we didn't really touch on was really the structural, the technical structure of storytelling, which is basically a page-by-page format. So I'm just going to give you a couple bullet points here, which are super easy to remember. Don't write long paragraphs. I'm going to say this. Do not write long paragraphs. Long subjective. If your paragraph is a page, it's too long. Are there exceptions? Absolutely. But we want to make it as easy as possible for a reader, and we need some space on the pages so people don't tune out. If you're 90% of the way in your story and you're doing this, that's fine. But especially in the beginning, make it as easy as possible. No long paragraphs. Can be exceptions, but generally speaking, this is a good rule. Other good techniques. Paragraphs should always be indented. New paragraphs always indented. Paragraphs. Paragraphs. I'm saying I'm a real writer. I can spell good. New paragraphs indented. All dialogue needs speech tags. All dialogue needs speech tags. No exception. If a character's speaking, speech tag. Oh no, wait. Sorry. Not all. I'm being stupid. All dialogue. Let me rephrase that. I'm like going on. All dialogue does not need speech tags. All dialogue needs quotation marks. Speech tags can be used sparingly. There we go. That makes sense. All dialogue does not need speech tags. There's times where you can use it all the time. There's times where you don't want to use it all the time. Essentially, the question you want to ask yourself is this. If you take all the speech tags out of this conversation, does the reader still understand who is speaking? Yes? Great. You probably don't need the speech tags. No? Keep in some of the speech tags to orient your reader. Essentially, at heart, we always want to think of minimizing as many words as possible because we want the reader to be focused in on the story and not get sidetracked by miscellaneous words and miscellaneous things that would just otherwise pull us out of that incredible story that you have. All right, so let's see. Speech tags can be used sparingly. All right, Dave, no go on the pre-story then. Oh man, all right, Dave, you must have it must involve a really long manifesto, and it'll be religiously and politically incorrect. All right, Dave and John, it sounds like you guys got some good storytelling chops over here. Atomic, that's actually an absolutely great note. Do not publish long paragraphs. Absolutely. So actually, thank you for clarifying, or thank you for mentioning that. Let me clarify. So when I say don't write long paragraphs, in the rough draft, do whatever you want. Have fun, do the things, try new things, try different styles. If your paragraph is 2 pages long, more power to you. Now, if you're going to give this story to other people to read, these structural things are really good things to be aware of. For you to get the best chance of without me knocking the desk, for you to get the best chance of other people enjoying your story, I would say be aware of the paragraph length. Because sometimes you might write super long ones in the rough draft and maybe it's necessary, but then somebody else reads it and you're like, oh, that's actually not. What you don't want to happen is you don't want some people to read it, your alpha readers, your beta readers. You don't want them to read it and then be like, yeah, it was just all right. What I hate to see a lot of time, especially with new writers, and I'm not saying any of you are new writers per se, but what I hate to see is new writers will turn in these stories, and these stories are absolutely incredible. Now, I've seen these types of stories in some in my online critique show, usually in writers groups, back in school, other writers I've networked with, and coaching and writing clients that I've had over the years. But what I see a lot of time is these writers have some absolutely phenomenal, great stories, great ideas, But what happens is because it's either structured incorrectly or either it's too wordy or the word choice, it's the wrong word choice, or they're not using dialogue. They're doing a number of things incorrectly. It makes the reading experience confusing. Moral of the story: follow some of these common structuring tips, and it'll help you. Let's see. What do I got here? Mommy Telly made a really good point on adverbs, on limiting adverbs on speech tags. You know what? This is something that I'm really guilty of. With my storytelling, a lot of time with dialogue, I like to use adverbs, verbs, and descriptions adding on to the dialogue tags to further the action of the story. I think it's something that I personally like doing, but at times, there's times where it can definitely pull the reader out. So it's something that I'm aware on. I'm intentional about it, and I'm aware on it. Are there going to be times where I can absolutely pull back? Absolutely. But especially during the rough draft, it's once again, have fun, know your weakness, so that way you can focus on it when you go through your edits. Let's see. And John, there's probably going to be vodka and a pink drink in the priest story, along with some manifesto. Let's see. A detective AI pen that tracks down dodgy priests who have escaped Boston and headed to Rome would absolutely be a great starting point for a story. And the AI pen's going to have to meet up with the AI typewriter, and they're going to form the AI manifesto that will take over the world. But maybe it's like the worst thing ever, and people really hate it. I think you have some absolutely great ideas over here. Absolutely phenomenal ideas. So as I think of some of these technical structures, let's say, so don't write long paragraphs, new paragraphs indented, all dialogue needs quotation marks. The quotation marks on dialogue, non-negotiable. All dialogue needs quotation marks. End of story. But you're like, but Kauffman, what if I have a character who is doing a flashback? Or what if I have a character who's like thinking of a memory, and that memory is their mentor was telling them something? When you are doing, I like to call like conversations within a conversation, if a character is not physically saying something in the present moment of the story, and let's say you want to like highlight a quote a character said to this to your protagonist, I always like to use apostrophes. Like make sure apostrophes. It's like make sure I'm saying that right. Yeah, I was like, I want to make sure that I was saying that correctly. I'm having a brain fart. So I like to use apostrophes personally if it's like a character who's like thinking something. For example, Scarecrow was having a lot of fun as he thought back to his mentor's advice. Scarecrow, don't be stupid. I think that's how I would frame it. Alternatively, you can also use italics as well. I would say either the apostrophe or italics is another good way to go about it. I've seen both used in storytelling before. I'd have to check to see if there's a right or wrong way to go about them. Let's see. Let's see. Mommy Telly, try not to info dump with purple prose / too many adjectives. Absolutely. This is something I was 100% guilty of in my early days as a writer. One of my biggest problems was way too much adjectives and way too much description. And with info dumping, what that means is if I'm writing a story about let me think. If I'm writing a story about a dog who is trying to find their way home, this is a principle of showing versus telling. I want to show the audience, or I want to show the reader the dog's journey. I don't want to tell them it. It'd be easy for me to say the dog ran into a trash can, walked up to a human, ate a bunch of food, and found his way home, as compared to the dog smelled food in the air. He felt a burning pain on his tail to realize that a brick had fallen on his tail and he was suddenly bleeding. Using the senses will absolutely help you with showing. Absolutely. You always want to find opportunities where you can show what's going on over telling the audience directly. I'm coming up with an outline now. The pen will be named Scribe. I absolutely love that. All right, Dave. By the way, Dave, when this becomes a bestseller, just let us, just give us some credit. Like, hey, the idea started here in Kauffman Writes. It sounds like a great idea. I'm like excited for you. One of the best things is when you have like that new idea and then more like ideas start coming. Absolutely. Dave, if you ever need more like ideas with it as you're working on it, we're here. I stream every day. Italics are great for internal thought. Absolutely. Thank you, Atomic, and especially first person. So a lot of my writing focuses on third person. For the most part, a lot of these principles will apply to first and second person. Second person is probably the least common of the three writing styles. I would say I write generally in third. I will do some first person every once in a while, and then very little second. But generally, most stories you read, I would say it's like 70%, I think, is third person storytelling is what readers generally gravitate towards. Hey, what's up, Silent? Welcome to the stream. Taking a break from that studying. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. So as a side note, all right, so we're having a we're having a good dialogue here. So by the way, if you're just joining the stream or if you're getting value out of this, don't forget to follow and subscribe. I come out with this new live streams every single day. I'm crazy. I started this doing to write, challenge myself, 30 minutes a day for a year. Today has been day 111, going strong. And then for you, we have motivation, inspiration, and advice. I also come out with weekly writing videos and shorts to really help you get your story to the next level. So don't forget to tap that follow and subscribe button. Right now for my shows, I have 3 segments. Monday through Friday is the Kauffman Writes segment. Saturday is the Story and Critique show, where you can send your story excerpts for submission. I read them aloud, and then I give you live feedback. This is absolutely free thing that I do for the community. And then Sunday has been the start of our brand new Creative Right Now podcast. And this Sunday, we have the next episode coming for you. I will be announcing the details later this week, but the podcast is geared towards interviewing professionals and other creatives who are in the industry to help you really elevate your craft and get your story to the next level. Okie dokie. So that was good. All right. So what do I got? All right. So I feel like we covered actually some really great ground. And if you're just hopping in right now, make sure you can check out the replay and see some of these parts that we missed. But we definitely covered a good deal of ground over 30 minutes of the stream so far. All right. So, and let me know, especially in the comments, if this type of format, if this works for you or this really helps you. As I continue to come up with new ideas, I'm always asking myself, how do I structure things in a way that provides you with the most value? And value could be entertainment, value could be skill building, or value could be community. So always let me know if these things help you. I appreciate it. I want to do more of what works. Okay, so with that, now what we're going to do next, we're going to hop into our daily 20-minute writing sprint. But before you go, know that you can actually stick around because after the writing sprint, we're going to hop into some common story structure problems. What are problems that you have or that that writers have when trying to structure their stories? So we'll hop into that after the writing sprint. I got my writing sprint queued up. So I'm going to drop this. Now, if let's say it's been a long week for you so far, don't worry. If you want to just sit back and relax, I'm going to throw on some music and you can read along as I'm working on my story, Last Scarecrow. Or let's say you're feeling like super creative now, you're working on that story, come join me. 20 minutes, you can do it. Whether you're brainstorming, writing, or editing, the entire process counts as the writing development process. All right, let's see what we got here. Both my outlines got caught. Let's see, both my outlines got caught by the mod. Excellent. This definitely works. That's awesome. That is absolutely wonderful. I'm glad. Awesome. I'm glad you're getting value out of this, Dave. Thanks for that. Do you sell courses? I probably should, in honesty. I have a list of things and strategies that I'm working on. Right now, I'm actually developing a free tool to help make your stories easier to edit. So that tool, I'm about halfway through. That should be coming soon. I'm working towards probably a newsletter type segment. I am planning on courses, and I'm setting up some live public speaking things for this summer, but that stuff is still a little to come. Courses would be a good idea, though. It absolutely would. It's like something else on my radar I'd like to make. I just want to make sure that if I do a course, that I'm intentional and strategic with the layout of the course, the format, so that way if people are spending money, that they're getting the most value out of it possible. Thanks for asking. Let's see, I'm juggling between this and a local author tube live stream. It is a good one. Yeah, totally no worries, my man. We'll be here. Perfect timing. What's your website? Thanks for asking. So my website, I'll throw it in the chat here, is thecreativeghost.com. There you go. I just threw that up here. And that's on screen as well. So if you want to know more about me, if you want to know more about my services, I offer both coaching, which is one-on-one writing if you're struggling with either accountability or you kind of need help really structuring your stories on a section by section level. I also offer editing services. So if your story's at that point and you need to get it to the next level to be published, I do that as well. So those are my two favorite things to do. And yeah, so you can go check out more about me there. I also just updated my bio. Super professional. Looks like something you'd see on Wikipedia. So go check out the-creative-ghost.com. Thanks for asking, Dave. I appreciate that. And let's see what we got. Scribe, an AI detective pen, investigates suspicious activities in Rome. Complicated by Tiberius, a sentient typewriter skilled in record manipulation. Nice. Scribe methodically uncovers and counters Tiberius's schemes. The story climaxes with Scribe revealing Tiberius's full involvement, leading to a resolution that restores order. Wow, that's a really good job. You came up with a very fully realized story in this period. I'm really proud of you. That's awesome. I'm super curious to see which scene you're going to start writing first. The story comics. And I think a good thing to keep in mind, Dave, and maybe you already have this, is ask yourself also, what is the message? What's the message, the theme that you want your reader to walk away from? By writing that down, even if it's the message is the evil of AI, or maybe the message is the benefits of AI. If you had that core message or theme in mind, then as you're writing your characters, it helps you to make critical decisions. If you're what type of scenario should I put my character in? It really helps, especially if you come up with, even if it's just a general idea on the back end. Priests and kids don't mix will be the theme. Oh God. Well, I think that people will definitely read that. So I'm eager to see how it turns out. It sounds like there'll be manifestos involved. Good luck with the storytelling process, my man. All right. So onwards and upwards. Let me throw up the music. All right, and I actually made really good progress on last Scarecrow yesterday. I think that was one of like the longest sections I did during the live stream. I got through the entirety of Skunk's chapter. I'm actually I'm almost realizing I think I actually need a restructure. I think I'm going to fix some of the chapter outline. Instead of ending this in the middle of a section, I'm going to start a new chapter. Because we're about to have a big moment, and I think it deserves its own. Okay. Uno momento. All right, and then now let me open. I got my outline. And as you can see, I literally gave myself a full chapter outline. Let's see. I'm trying not to go too far ahead because I don't want to. So I actually think chapter 34. Okay. I don't want to go too far ahead. I can't give away too much of the story yet, where we're getting deep into it. I want there to be some surprise. So chapter 34 will be the deal. Let's call it the ritual. The bargain ritual. Perfect. That's just my placeholder. I like to come up with placeholder names. So this will be chapter 34, the bargain ritual. And I'm just going to take what I had in the outline for that original. Perfect. And that is essentially chapter 34. Okay. So now that I got that, let's get this set up. All right. And I'll check the comments once more. Awesome. Thanks for dropping by, Dave. Appreciate you, my man. All right. So we got 20 minutes on the clock. And make sure that you can see. All right. And I'll blow up the music. All right. And it's time to write now. All right. Let's see. I'll do that. All right, and that brings us to the end of that writing sprint. I think that one definitely went like maybe 30 minutes, maybe a little longer. Oh man, I felt really good about that. I like sometimes I do these writing sprints and I'm just like I'm good with the 20 minutes. But sometimes if I'm at like the near the end of a scene of a beat, I like feel like I have to finish that beat. And that's the completionist in me. I was like, I wanted to get to the end of that little bedroom scene, which is kind of setting them up for the next part. And I felt like it was important to start off with a little bit of a dream sequence, very, very short. I think it was important to refresh the reader that the Scarecrow is continuously worried about both fire and the boy with the red beanie, which was literally the first reference very, very early on in the story. I get to reference the Scarecrow being put back together with the straw and the stuffing. And then this is the first time that I've really referenced the timeline again, with Gore being very surprised that the Scarecrow had any type of interaction with the creators, which he references the humanity, as he believes that the humanity went extinct thousands of years prior. So, whether or not that is true remains to be seen. So, I feel really good about that. Ding, fries are done. Perfect. Thanks so much, Atomic. I really appreciate it. Just send the fries over. That'll be really great. All right. So that was a good little writing sprint. So as I think about what are common writing. Okay. So let's take about 10 minutes. So let's think through what are some common structural problems when that writers deal with when trying to structure your story. What are common mistakes that writers run into? Common story structure mistakes. And let's see, we'll go this. So, what are common story structure mistakes? What are things that happen? What are pitfalls, traps that I see with new beginner writers that I see writers make all the time? Now, like I said, there's no right or wrong way to structure a story, and you can absolutely go out of order. But I think a common problem I see is writers will go through the entire process of writing a story and then never focus on structuring the format, the dialogue, the paragraph, the technical side of it until after the fact, especially after giving it to a reader. And then sometimes newer writers can be surprised when they get feedback or when they've now given off the perception that they're an inexperienced writer, when in reality, the story could actually be good. But because the technical formatting of like the paragraph structure and the dialogue tags, and then the proper grammar and very easily fixable things aren't looked at. Now, a lot of the times when a story gets to the editing stage, a lot of times this will be fixed in a proofread. A proofread can take care of common grammar problems. Sometimes copy edits will take care of these types of problems. But I think a really easy fix is if you're going page by page of your story, and let's say you're in your second draft, and you're asking yourself, is this easy to read or is this easy to view as a reader? The questions that I ask myself, and I'll give you guys some really good questions to think about to overcome this problem. All right, so easy questions to ask yourself. is it clear who is speaking? Is it clear who is speaking? If I'm looking at a single page of my story, I'm going to look at a single page, and let's bring ourselves down here. And let's say, so I can do that. So easy questions to ask yourself. Is it clear who is speaking? Another good question to ask yourself is, are the paragraphs broken up correctly? Is everything spelled correctly? Are words spelled correctly? Is dialogue correctly formatted? Clear who's speaking. That kind of goes under the speaking portion. Let's see, what's another one? So formatting a paragraph, dialogue, action. Is there a healthy mix of action and or interiority? Some of the best written stories I've seen tend to blend action, what the character does, with what the characters think. Blending the two comes down to your style and your preference. Some writers tend to do more action, less interiority. Some writers are the complete opposite. The fun part is you get to figure out what works for you, but throughout the process, you still got to use both to tell an engaging or assuming third person story. If we don't know what the characters are thinking, then we're either dealing with an unreliable narrator, unreliable characters, or we're not really getting the true strengths of what novel writing is, right? One of the greatest strengths of reading a book is that we get to explore what characters think, how they feel. Whereas a script, we get to see what characters think and what they feel, but we have to believe it based on what they say, right? So that's one of the differences. And we want to make sure that we actually get to explore what your protagonist thinks about things and how they feel about things. So important. Now, to what extent is your determination? And you get to figure that out. So, all right. So these are some good questions that I'll usually ask myself when I'm looking at just like a single page if I'm going back for an edit. Let me think. So what are some other common mistakes? I would say this goes a little bit into outlining, but not being clear with what your goal is. What's like the goal of your story? Sometimes we get so inspired by ideas that we're not certain on what is the goal. What's like the specific message? What's the theme? What's the takeaway from the story? If there's ever a part where you're stuck with and you're like, well, I don't really know what to write next, right? I feel like it's an interesting story, but I'm kind of lost. A great question to ask yourself is, in this scene, if my reader stopped reading right now, or let's say they put the book down for a break, what do I want them to walk away with? What do I want them to think about as they finish reading this page? Do I want them to be asking questions about my protagonist is? Do I want them to be rooting for the actions of the hero? Do I want them to be confused? Maybe I want them to be confused if I've just given them some suspenseful moments. Maybe I want them to be reading faster because the next chapter is actually like a huge plot point, right? And I think a lot of the times we get so lost in our own storytelling process that we don't always think about the reader. Now, of course, we want to write for ourselves. Writing for yourself first is absolutely important. At the same time, if you're writing to get published and you're writing for other people to eventually read it, you also got to keep the reading experience in mind. And that's why a lot of these structuring things will really help you if you're trying to get published or get other people to read it. And by keeping the reader in mind, your goal first, your reader secondary. You'll make the reading experience just a much more fluid, dynamic experience, regardless of which step you're at. Whether your story is a rough draft or whether it is a third, fourth, or fifth draft. Let's see, Atomic. Once I saw recently is failing to connect scenes in a way that makes the reader want to keep reading. I could absolutely see that actually as a problem. I think I end up seeing so many I end up seeing a lot of stories which are put together, but I could see how if writers are like hopping around in the story, that could absolutely happen. And that one's actually a very easy one to fix. Let's see. This one's actually an easy one to fix because you can always refer back to your outline, right? So if it feels like there's skips between time or skips between chapters, um, sometimes it can be jarring unless you're intentional with the time skips, right? Some stories do it well, but if my character is fighting a dragon in one scene and then the next scene they're traveling through all of space and time, might be a little confusing unless I've set up prior in the story how the dragon and the time travel connect, right? And sometimes we forget that the important moments, that sometimes the important scenes of characters just sitting down and talking with each other can be just as important as the action sequences. As y'all have seen from what I just wrote with Last Scarecrow, right? That I just had an action sequence that I wrote yesterday with Skunk and leaving the tree and finding the sword, and then we start off with this not necessarily action sequence, but it's kind of just like a room sequence where Scarecrow's waking up, they're kind of talking, and it's character development. Finding that balance works as a really great way to transition scenes. If you're not sure what to focus on, ask yourself what's some character development that could work out, right? What's some is there any foreshadowing you could do that could get your readers interested more, right? So that's really absolutely a great one, Atomic. Let's see another one. This doesn't necessarily require a cliffhanger at the end of chapter scenes, but see if you can insert therefore, because or even though in between your scenes. You can see that. So you're essentially like using like a word placement as an easy transition between scenes. It's a good idea. Absolutely. Agreed with that. Let's see. If you can't, is there a way to make that connection, or is it better to cut or replace that scene? Mm-hmm. And you always want to ask yourself this, right? If you have a scene, how does it serve your primary plot? How does it serve the main, either the plot of the story? How does it serve the theme, the message that you want to tell? Does it serve developing your protagonist? If you have 20 scenes that are all developing your protagonist and 2 scenes that are about moving the plot along, your reader might get bored. You might lose them because while character development is absolutely important, it has to stay in line with how it serves the overall narrative of the scene. So, for example, even though in the last scene it was character development, right? The focus was character development, but there's still some underlying plot threads which I touched upon throughout the scene. I did a couple of references. I did a little foreshadowing. So the scene wasn't necessarily a standalone character development scene, but that was the primary motivation while doing some other things. Let's see. Let's see. Hey, Kauffman, my local channel had an MMA fantasy Western writer on, and it was a really cool stream. Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. Who was the stream? I'll check them out. Local channel had an MMA a fantasy Western writer. That's super fun. I've always been looking up a lot of streams lately to see how I could always improve the format. Let's see. They had 25 viewers. Oh, that's amazing. It's incredible. Yeah, I think my average stream, because I'm streaming to about 5 different platforms. I think right now, welcome if you're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, not Instagram right now, LinkedIn, Twitch, and X, formerly Twitter. I think my weekday stream tends to average about 10 to 20 viewers on average, and then the weekends tend to do anywhere between 15 to 30. So that's super cool. I love the yeah, small channels always have a different vibe, don't they? Let's see. One problem is head hopping, so you have no idea who the MC is. That's a challenging one, yeah, especially if you're writing like a story that is a cast of characters. I could absolutely see that. I think that that problem goes into being unclear on who the story is actually about, right? Or what is the story that you're trying to tell. So like a really good example, Game of Thrones is probably a notable one that has a large cast of characters, right? Who's the protagonist of Game of Thrones? That raises a really great question. Who do you think was the protagonist? If you've seen the show or read the books, I would argue that Jon Snow was probably the protagonist. Some might argue Daenerys. You could probably go Jon or Daenerys. But there was good 30, 40, 50 characters throughout the course of the show. Sometimes people might have argued maybe Bran was the protagonist. Maybe Tyrion was the protagonist. Maybe Ned Stark was, or was led to believe. Even though there is a large cast of characters, the central story is about a single one. You can touch upon all the other characters as they pertain to the world, the plot, and the narrative, but you have to be clear with yourself who is the story actually about, right? Because that's the underlying, or not that's the overlying arc of the entire story. Let's see. In other words, the scene, therefore, next scene, despite third scene, kind of story flow. Yeah, that's absolutely a good strategy right there. It's kind of using that specific word choice to make the each of these separate scenes or sections flow more smoothly. That's a really good choice. You should absolutely copy that if that's something that you're struggling with. Let's see, if you want, I can give you some live stream tips. I'm well versed in what makes them successful. Yeah, John, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Any and all recommendation, advice, I absolutely love it. I think about live streaming as a process, and this channel, this Kauffman Writes, tends to be predominantly a more live stream focused experience. And I just like look at myself from where I was at 111 days ago, and I've definitely come a ways, and I'll continue to improve. That's awesome. Yeah, but any tips, John? Absolutely. That'd be super sweet. That'd be really awesome. As always, I'm trying to find ways to improve the overall experience. Let's see what else. Let's see, not that you necessarily have to write in that connection, but the structure should make some logical sense. POV changes can sometimes violate this temporarily. That's why sometimes it's hard. It can be hard for writers to change multiple point of views. Let's see. Just need that. Yeah, it can absolutely be difficult when we're writing with multiple characters. And I think I always challenge when writers have a lot of different characters in their story. And if they're struggling, or if the feedback is that, hey, you have a lot of characters, it feels like you have too many, for the writer then to go back and look at the outline and who is the story about. And then in each scene, you're asking yourself, even if the scene is a POV from another character, how does the scene affect and how is it incorporated into the main story? The main core plot should be around your protagonist. Even if your protagonist isn't in the scene, and one of these side characters, maybe they go on a treasure hunt and they find an object, and the object does something crazy to the world, and because the world's changed, that's going to affect your protagonist, right? So you want to ask yourself, how is this side character actions going to indirectly or directly affect your protagonist's journey? Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to tell you absolutely. POV. Then I got you. Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. Absolutely incredible. That'd be super sweet. Super, super sweet. I'd love that. Thanks, John. Yeah, so yeah, I think POV is a big one. That absolutely is. I think with that, I'm feeling a little. I feel at a good spot, so I think I'm going to start calling it a stream. I feel pretty good though. I feel like we actually touched on a good couple of common writer mistakes as it pertains to structure. We did a really good deep dive. I think our deep dive went about 40 minutes with some of these common ones going 20 minutes. And I just like continue to realize I could go on and on. Maybe I do need to make a course sooner. I have so much to share. And I also want to call out as I'm thinking through the end of the stream. I also want to call out Atomic. Thank you so much for your advice and assistance. Mami Telly, absolutely some great tips. And John, of course, thank you so much for your contributions and thanks for the ideas. I'll be looking forward to that. I continue to hope that you get value out of Story Structure Tuesdays, as it's a very important part of developing your novel. And don't forget, tap that like button on your way out. Just let me know that you got value out of the stream, and that really helps. I appreciate it. But that comes to the end of our stream. However, as always, I'll be back tomorrow for World Building Wednesdays. Oof, I love world building. And I actually found a super cool document that I think might actually help you guys. I'll show you tomorrow. So join me tomorrow, 5 p.m. Mountain Time, like normal, for World Building Wednesdays. And that's all that I got for you. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow, my friends. Stay creative.